It is the 24th of June. Summer is here. You might have a vacation coming up, maybe a little extra time to do the things that you love. And if reading is one of those things, pay attention. We have invited two book lovers, professional book lovers, to suggest some great summer reading for you for the next few weeks or months. Evelyn Gillespie owns Laughing Oyster Bookshop in Courtenay, British Columbia. Joe Saul co-owns Type Books in Toronto. Good morning to you both.
Good morning, Matt.
Evelyn, what do you look for? This is, in many ways, the most wonderful time of the year for me because I have a little bit of time off coming up, and this is the time when I can actually read for pleasure. And so I will spend time in stores like yours buying things that I think might put me into that summer reading mode. What do you look for in a summer book?
Well, I look for the same kind of thing that you do. I look for something big and juicy. That would be a great opportunity to really dig into something. I also look for something that's local interest. If I'm traveling around somewhere, I'm going to go into a local bookstore and find something that speaks to the area where I am.
I'm going to get some suggestions, specific suggestions from you coming up. Joe, what about for you? Is there something broad that you're looking for as a summer read?
I agree with Evelyn. I'm also looking for something big and juicy, something to relax with a little bit. Summer is a great time to catch up on reading. Summer is a time when a lot of paperbacks are published from the big, huge literary books at the fall, so I get to get my hands on some of the paperbacks. I like to read the blockbuster book of the summer as well. I like to know what my customers are reading so I can talk about those books with them.
What's the blockbuster book of the summer?
I think at our store this summer so far, I'm talking about Miranda July's new book, All Fours, a lot. People are coming in, they're asking for it. It's getting a lot of attention media-wise. I think people are reading it in groups. I'm kind of loving how people are responding to this new book by the performance artist, and she's a writer as well, but she's really kind of quirky character.
Can you give us the elevator pitch? If I came into Type and you said, this book is the book you should take home, what would you tell me in like 10 words?
Oh gosh. Okay. I would say that it is a road trip novel without a road trip. And if that doesn't get you, I don't know what will.
And if you like All Fours, what else would you recommend? Because you can't leave the store with just one book.
Yeah. So my thing is, if I have a companion piece, it's a nonfiction book. If you like All Fours, you will love Colum Schneck's Swimming in Paris, which is nonfiction memoir, three novellas. It's about a woman in Paris. It's autofiction. Maybe it's memoir, hard to tell, but it's really about her childhood, her adolescence. It's about female friendships. It's about everything that Miranda July's is about: aging, grief, menopause, big time, but from a much more quiet and sort of intimate perspective. It's beautiful. It's called Swimming in Paris.
Evelyn, in addition to running the bookshop or owning the bookshop, you have a summer book club for your family?
Well, we have a summer vacation together every year, and our summer book club is definitely your fun read book club. We're together for a week. I've put out 5 titles for people to vote on, and I'm putting forward my choice today.
And your choice is what?
My choice is Claire Pooley's How to Age Disgracefully. I'm, at the older end of the life cycle, and I love to read books about feisty women doing unusual things. and we'll see if my daughters agree with me.
Do you want to give us the elevator pitch for How to Age Disgracefully?
Well, Daphne is turning 70, which she considers to be old, and has found herself to be alone, and has decided she needs to find some friends. So she joins up with a community social club, which turns out to be a very interesting collection of people, all who have a variety of different quirks or needs, one of whom is a yarn bomber. Another is a kleptomaniac. Sounds like a pretty good read to me.
So how does this work? Everybody proposes a book and then you vote and decide which book is that the family's going to read over the holiday?
Well, I've done the proposing, and I've sent out a list with the descriptions of the books, and they're going to let me know which ones they choose.
And you hope that it's yours?
I hope it's mine.
Excellent. If you were looking for something, Evelyn, that you could read that maybe, I get that it's summer and you want to kind of turn your brain off a little, but maybe you want to learn something coming out of this, what would you recommend?
Oh, my goodness. North of Nowhere by Dr. Marie Wilson.
Oh, okay.
And I have just started to dip into this. So Dr. Marie Wilson was one of the 3 commissioners for the Truth and Reconciliation Commission. Mm-hmm. She was the only woman. She's non-Indigenous. She is a journalist by profession, and she tells the story of her experience with the Truth and Reconciliation Commission. My concern as a Canadian is that we are forgetting about this, that we may think that job is done and we're on to the next thing, but reconciliation is really, it is a process that is just beginning. And I, for myself, and I feel it's kind of incumbent on every Canadian to learn what we must about our history and to understand that. And she writes in such a profound, emotional, and kind way. It's really, I'm looking forward to this.
Jo, did you have a book that would speak to that brief as well?
I do, actually. I've been reading the new book by Niigaan Sinclair, Winnipeg, and I'm actually I'm about halfway through, but what I love about it is that it's a collection of his writings, mostly from the Free Press. So many I love how it ties the personal and political. I mean, you really can't divide those two things in this book.
He gave us kind of a preview when we were in Winnipeg and kind of placed the city at the center of the country. Absolutely. In many ways, like not just geographically, but talks about Winnipeg as this kind of meeting place and force of energy in some way.
Exactly. And he talks about how in terms of a colonial history, Winnipeg is at the center. Again, he uses that word a lot about the city. It's at the center of a history, but it's also at the center of a future. And I think we have something to learn from that, he suggests, and how it's going to be transformative, and that there's so much hope in this book in that sense. It's also a call to action, I feel like. So like Evelyn was saying, he makes the point that we should be reading these books. One should be reading, they should be learning. And then the next stage after that is committing to some form of action in terms of reconciliation.
Excellent. Anything else in the nonfiction category that you would recommend, Jo?
I'm recommending Stroll by Sean McAuliffe because it is nonfiction. It's also travel. We all try to get away somewhere. It's good for the hometown person like myself who grew up in Toronto. It's a book that is a guidebook, but it's not a guidebook. It's really about Toronto through walks and through walking and strolling, as he calls it. It's called Stroll. And it's a way to sort of defamiliarize yourself in Toronto, things that you've passed and seen a million times if you're from here, or maybe never seen at all if you're visiting. Just take on a completely new light. It's about architecture. It's about urban planning. It's about politics, which we really need to be talking about when it comes to a city like Toronto right now.
And the things that you see when you're walking that you wouldn't see if you were on a bike or in a car or in the bus or what have you.
Yeah, he talks about the one walk from Yonge Street, from the lakeshore all the way up to Richmond Hill, is it, or Steeles, wherever it is, and what you pass when you're walking by Yonge Street, when you actually take the time to relate to places as opposed to hurry by them.
Evelyn, you said something at the very beginning about what you were looking for in summer reads, and one of them was if you were traveling to go into a local bookshop and buy something or get something that speaks to the place that you're in. So we've heard books about Toronto and books about Winnipeg. What about something that would speak to British Columbia?
Well, I have in front of me Daniel Marshall's Untold Tales of British Columbia. Really nice little bites, essays that speak to our history and how British Columbia came to be. Daniel Marshall is a really well-known and respected historian, and pulling together these pieces, I think, as I said, they're really nice bites that you can read in half an hour or so, and it gives you a real sense of where you are. But I also pulled a favorite collection of short stories of mine by a local writer, Harold Macy, All the Bears Sing. And one of the reasons I love this book is because it's all character driven. So every one of these short stories is about a character. And as you get to know our part of the world, you would recognize these characters. Grizzled old loggers and hippies and scoundrels. And
who doesn't like scoundrels?
Yes, scoundrels.
If there was one of the things, if you have the benefit of having some time off, is that you can actually take the time to tear into something that maybe you wouldn't have the time to otherwise. Is there like a project read, Evelyn, that you have this summer?
Well, I've had Wade Davis's book of essays, Beneath the Surface of Things. I've had it beside my bed for a number of months now, and I just find it's not the kind of book that I can read at night. His essays are very sharp and take us into all kinds of different things. But in particular, I'm interested in his view of our American neighbors, and especially as they're going into an election, for us to be able to understand a little bit more about the history of the U.S. and what's going on in their politics. He also addresses climate anxiety, and these are essays that he pulled together during the pandemic and has just recently published. And I think it will be the kind of thing that I will sit down and read in the daytime, where I can really put my attention to it.
Excellent. Joe, is there something that you would recommend as a thriller that might allow people to kind of park the thinking part of their brain for a moment and just kind of get caught up in a story?
Summer is the time for thrillers, absolutely. I'm actually recommending, I mentioned before, books that are coming in paperback this summer, and I'm actually recommending Colson Whitehead's Crook Manifesto, which I absolutely loved. For those of you who don't know, it's the second in the Harlem saga, written by Colson Whitehead. He's won the Pulitzer at least twice. I think so it's a thriller, but it's a very literary thriller. It's a social satire, but more than that, it is a really hot summer read. Literally, it takes place in Harlem in the 70s on very, very hot days. That city is burning, both politically, but also actually. And it is just, it's about this one character, and you just get so involved emotionally with him and his family as he tries to stay on the, quote, straight and narrow in 70s Harlem, New York. It's a wonderful book, and I highly recommend reading it in conjunction with book one, which is Harlem Shuffle.
So he's one of those authors that I'll go back to reread. I don't have a lot of time to read things, let alone reread things, but I'll go back and reread Sag Harbor, one of his novels about life when he was growing up. I'm going to do some of that, I think, over the course of the summer as well. Go back to reread some things that I love that I just kind of forgot how much I really like. Do you find yourself doing that as well? Yeah,
it's funny you mention that, because I've been thinking a lot about Alice Munro lately for obvious reasons. But I keep saying to my daughter, you have to read Lives of Girls and Women. You have to go. And then I realize I should reread Lives of Girls and Women. It's been that long. And it's that kind of book that I feel really good about passing along to her, and maybe reading in conjunction with her too, because Alice Munro is someone that I remember reading 30 years ago when my mom and her group of friends were reading her too. So, and it also will take me back to short stories, which I don't read a lot of. And so that's a project that I've set myself for the summer, is to reread some, not all, obviously, of Alice Munro, and hopefully do it with in conjunction with my daughter.
Evelyn, do you do that? Do you go back and reread things in the summer?
Not a lot, but just this conversation makes me think I will go back and read Margaret Atwood's Handmaid's Tale. I read that when I was expecting my third child, and it was not a good time to read that book. So I would like to read it again with a different view, and I would like to add Lives of Girls and Women to my summer reading suggestions for my own daughters. Thank you.
Is there one thing, I'll ask you both this before we go, is there one thing, Evelyn, that you are most looking forward to reading? The book that you kind of hold off reading because you need time and space, and you need time for that kind of book hangover after, when you're done, to kind of think about it. Is there one thing that's on the top of the pile for you?
The Covenant of Water by Adrian Verghese. It is a big, fat book.
It's a sensation,
I know,
too.
As a bookseller, when a book is when it has such a popular appeal, it's not a book that I feel I have to read to be able to serve my customers, but it is a book I really want to read. I love the idea of a family saga. I don't know anything about India, and just learning a little bit more about this part of the country and the lives and the politics and everything that goes on. I am very much looking forward to this.
I love how you phrase that, things that you have to read versus what you want to read. Joe, what do you want to read?
I will admit that I have read it because it's coming out in August. It's Elizabeth Strout. It's Anything is Possible. It's another Lucy Barton book. It is absolutely magnificent. I am a self-proclaimed Strout superfan. I've read it all. In this book, all I will say is that our heroes, Olive Kitteridge and Lucy Barton, sit down together for the first time in Strout history, and the relationship between these two women, bringing the fact that Strout can bring together all of these lives in this one novel. I highly, highly recommend it. It's coming out in August.
What a great reading list. Thank you both. Happy summer.
Thank you, Matt.
Thanks, Matt.
Thanks, Evelyn.
Okay, thanks, Joe.
Evelyn Gillespie owns Laughing Oyster Bookshop in Courtenay, British Columbia. Joe Saul co-owns Type Books in Toronto. We'll put up this list of books for everybody to pick through. But what are you reading this summer? Let's build a summer reading list. We're going to do that through your emails. You can email us, thecurrent@cbc.ca.